All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. This is the SSDP Strategy Summit session on our Just Say No peer education program. And my name is Vilmarie Narloch. I am the Director of Drug Education for SSDP, and I developed, along with lots of many amazing people, our Just Say No peer education program. I do have just sort of a little bit of an outline that I'll be going through. So I will pull that up for you all to see. Just one sec. I have to change the settings so you all can see it. Great. And then I'll also screen share for those who prefer that method of viewing things. Excellent. Okay, are you all able to see my screen now?
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so yeah, the Just Say No program, cool, thanks y'all, has been around since 2016. We started working on it probably as early as 2014. It was sort of the brainchild of Francis Fu, former SSDP staff member and SSDP alum, and myself, who were just really interested in sort of addressing the harms put on us by things like the DARE program and the Just Say No mentality of our youth. And we thought that SSDP was a great sort of vehicle for doing that, and thus became the Just Say No program. And we launched it in 2016, like I said, and we were really fortunate to work with lots of just brilliant minds and experts in the field of harm reduction and drug education in the development of it. You can see sort of the list of our working group on our webpage, which is ssdp.org/justsayno. This is just kind of the overview here of what it is. I think most of you in this space right now are familiar with it. I'm just kind of looking to see if there's any newbies. Yeah, so, basically undoing those harms, recognizing that young people go to each other first when it comes to experimenting and asking questions about drug use, and essentially wanting to equip all of our members who are interested in this kind of thing and having these conversations with that sort of like well-rounded, comprehensive knowledge to be able to do that. So where we are right now is our training curriculum. We are on the second edition of the curriculum. Ever so often, I take all of the feedback and resources that are recommended and all sorts of other good info that we get from our members and incorporate that into a new draft of the training curriculum. So we're currently in the second edition, and we are very, very close, like super close to being able to launch the third edition. Much thanks to Kevin Garcia, who's in here, who's been a huge part of that development. So the program is 13 lessons, and there's also 2 elective lessons, and we have all different sorts of topics and skills related to the kind of work that we do in SSDP. So the training curriculum, and you can also access that on our webpage, it's basically a really big Google document with lots of links to the different resources for each lesson. And so you can kind of see here all the different types of information that's included in that, including just letting people know like what peer education is, some of the sort of like theory and evidence and background behind why we're using this kind of model. And then one of the things that our members tend to be most concerned about or believe is going to be the biggest challenge when they undertake this kind of programming is whether or not they are equipped to handle challenging questions and worried about ways that they can communicate the kind of information, which, in some circles and some communities can be considered controversial, to be able to do that. And so that sort of led to this lesson of this listening, responding, and referral skills lesson, which used to be toward the end of the training, and we actually moved it up sooner because it was like consistently a thing that people would note in their responses to some of the first lesson questions about like what challenges that you think you might have in doing this, is just that, is being able to have the skills necessary to have challenging conversations, to be able to support a peer who may be dealing with a family member, a loved one, or their own substance use challenges. So that one was moved around for that purpose. And then we get into some of the more sort of education, knowledge-based lessons. So the sort of history of drug policy and how drug education sort of intersects with that. And then more sort of like the community sort of social understanding of drug use and substance use disorder, getting into issues of stigma and harm reduction and recovery. And then some skills building stuff. So actually being able to take this information and put it in a program or presentation sort of format, and what sorts of skills you might need to do that. Self-care is hugely important in any kind of work that we do as activists, as advocates, as direct service people. And then we also included a lesson on self-disclosure, because again, this kind of topic, talking about drug use, can be challenging, and oftentimes you might get questions about what your own history is with drug use. And there's a lot of reasons why someone might ask you that question. So that lesson is really sort of geared toward helping people, one, understand why somebody might ask you that question, and get them thinking about how for themselves they might make that decision of whether or not to self-disclose. And then of course, intersectionality is a big piece of our work in SSDP. So of course, that is one of our lessons. And in that we obviously talk about race and the war on drugs. And a lot of this stuff is sort of threaded within and throughout the other lessons as well. But we wanted to ensure that we sort of like had a nice culminating lesson that really sort of tied all of that together. And then the electives are based on the need from our own community. So members came to me requesting that they wanted more of this kind of information. So I supported them in creating these lessons. So one of the big pieces of the program that we had from the start that we wanted to do was sort of a webinar-based learning process. And that deemed to be incredibly challenging and a huge like capacity issue that we recognized over time. So we initially launched the program without that, and just the sort of document, the sort of self-study training curriculum, and have since been working toward building that up. This last year, again, much thanks to Kevin Garcia, we were able to knock a huge chunk of that process out. So we have our first 3 lessons are available on YouTube in our Just Say No playlist. All of the slideshows for the lessons to be in webinar format are completed. I'm having some sessions with some chapters to present some of these, just to kind of test them out, make sure that it flows well and all of that. And then the next step is then to be able to record the lessons and put them up on our YouTube in the near future. And again, like I can't stress enough that this was such a huge undertaking. And again, without Kevin's work in a lot of this, we wouldn't be able to be as far as we are with that. So Kevin, props. And then sort of the flip side of our program is what happens when people are finally trained. And that's being able to present our Just Say No drug education modules. And these are the ones that we have currently. And these are another piece of it that requires some sort of like maintenance and upkeep. And we've had some members every once in a while that have helped me update them to make sure all the data is accurate and all the information is accurate. Because as you know, like with drugs, because of the fact that they're illegal, it's hard to get a lot of decent research. So as more and more information is available to us, it's important that we keep updating those things. And we have a few others that have either been proposed or are in development. And those are, for the most part at this point, sort of stalled. So if anyone has any interest in developing a lesson or developing a module, reach out to me, because I would love for folks to do that. As far as engagement, right now we have about 154 members engaged at varying levels of the training curriculum. We have 23 people who are completely certified, 4 new ones this past year. We've got, let me see, a few of you right here in this call, 1, 2, 3, I think 3 or 4 of you, which is great. Might call on you in a little bit. We also had a really cool thing started by Kat Ebert and Evan Hazlitt earlier, within the past few months, was this Just Say No, kind of like a book club. I was the one that started calling it a book club because I thought it was cute. We can call it something else, but basically it was, they wanted to, engage together in going through the training, and thought, others might also have interest in doing that, having like a little discussion about the lessons as they go through them, which I thought was super exciting. I was really excited about it. Both Kat and Evan are, obviously rock stars and involved in a lot of different things, a lot of it SSDP related. So they've had to step back with that, but I know at least Kevin mentioned being interested in getting back into that. So I'm hoping that we can sort of revamp that and get that going again, because I do think it's a great way, particularly now when it's harder to even like be connected with your chapters, because everyone has to like be at home. This is a good way for folks to be kind of working through that training together and get some sort of, talk through the questions and that kind of thing. I also wanted to throw in that we had last year a few people who had reached out about doing the program as kind of an independent study. They had, elective credits available, for their own schooling, and had considered that. So I actually took some time to develop this kind of guide for using it, and it's linked to there. And I basically looked at different schools, different universities, and what their requirements were for proposing or applying for an independent study, and kind of put those pieces together in that guide for people that were interested. We had one person, Carissa Dorr, who went through it last year through her master's program as an independent study. It was really successful. It was really kind of cool to work with her on that process. The promotion section, that's just like any place that anyone has promoted or talked about Just Say No. So I just sort of had a list of all the different things. The most recent, of course, was at Sensible 2020. We had a session on drug education of the future. Kevin was in that, Haley and Ray from Dance Safe. It was really interesting session, kind of about, how we take all of what we know about drug education and sort of like radicalize it and make it really awesome. Of course, blog posts. The most recent has been the drug education sort of current events roundup that I have been doing. And you can sort of, if you search Just Say No on our website, all of those will pop up. It's on hold right now, just kind of due to capacity and a few extra responsibilities that I'm taking on while we're hiring a new ED. But I do hope to continue that again once things settle down, because it was a lot of fun for me to kind of like read through all the most recent information around drug education and be able to kind of compile the coolest stuff for folks to be able to read. Some other promotional things I did. All right. So then kind of where we're going. Again, as I mentioned, as far as the format, we're continuing to sort of build it up. The original version idea of the sort of webinar format. Hope to get that on YouTube this spring. Once again, props to Kevin for all of the work that he's put into that. This one's super helpful. We had started doing some translation. Luna had been working on this, but like was, obviously awesome, obviously started a really cool job and wasn't able to do more of that. So That's in the works. So if you know of anyone that would be interested in translating the materials into Spanish, she got a good chunk of it done. You can just kind of pick up where that was left off. Again, there was a couple of new elective lessons in development. There was a harm reduction for people who engage in sex work and use drugs by Julia Hilbert, who's in here, I believe. And then there was a lesson on consent by Erica. So both of those were just kind of waiting on the last pieces of that to be put together. And as always, just kind of continuing to incorporate that feedback and the suggestions from all of you and all of our members going through the training. Again, we hope to launch the 3rd edition really soon here. So excited about that. There were a couple of resources that we developed within the past year that haven't sort of made it to the outside world yet. Again, just because of capacity things. We had a harm reduction sort of quick guide that was in a door hanger format that like chapters could hand out to people. That had all the content is there. It's just a matter of like having someone who knows about graphic design to do those things. And also a few sort of drug harm reduction info cards that are kind of in the same spot. I wanted to highlight a couple of super cool things that are happening with a couple of members. So Maimuna from SSDP Abu Zaria, which is one of our most active chapters in Africa, received a really cool fellowship, the Millennium Fellowship, which is run by the United Nations Academic Impact and Millennium Campus Network. And so they are focusing on harm reduction and mental health, and is going to be utilizing Just Say No as part of that process. So super excited for that. And then also Yulia from University College London is working on sort of a volunteer program through their university and is putting together a group of volunteers who are going to be going through the Just Say No training to then be able to deliver that knowledge to local area schools. So young sort of people in their school system. And then what we're hoping to get, again, I'm really hopeful that the video format will help more folks complete the training more efficiently. I think probably some of the most common feedback that we get is just that it takes kind of a while to go through the training and that it's a lot of information. Part of that is intentional because this is a kind of an important role and responsibility to take on to be a peer educator. So we want you to have that sort of well-rounded information, but you also want to be able to do it before like you're done with school. So that's part of the reason for developing the webinars, is hoping that that'll speed up the process for folks so they'll still be able to get all the information, but without taking as much time. I also want to get more engagement from our certified SSD peers to be able to support others going through the training. So any of our certified peer educators can help to deliver webinars to different chapters. They can host Just Say No book club sessions. They can do all sorts of different things to help in that. And so I guess, yeah, some questions that I have, and I'm going to pose to you all. And I also want to open it up for your own questions and ideas, but some things to think about as we continue on with the discussion portion of this session is how can we get more people interested in presenting drug ed modules? So once people become certified, oftentimes that's sort of where it ends, and then they don't go on to actually presenting the Just Say No information. Though many of them do go on to like really cool jobs where they're using this stuff. So can't fault them too much there. And what other Just Say No activities can we do? Are there other things that you would like for us to be doing through Just Say No? And it seems to me that more sort of a group effort work seems to be what people are interested in and looking for. So again, bringing back the book club, I think would be a good thing. So with that said, I'm going to stop screen sharing so we can chit chat a little bit, and I'll try to take notes as we're going here too. So if you have questions or comments, you can go ahead and unmute yourselves and we can get into it.
Hello. My name is Goodman. I'm a chapter leader. Recently started it back up at Occidental College. But one question I have is there any sort of ways that we, SSDP has tried to expand the Just Say No program to engaging with high schoolers and high school education and stuff like that? Because one thing on campus that I've been trying to do when setting up kind of like a peer education network, I've been trying to work closely with the other organization, Peer Health Exchange, which kind of does like they have similar philosophies. I don't think they do necessarily drug education, but in terms of like sex education, they kind of take the same philosophy where they want you to just have the actual real education and then decide on your own. So I'm trying to find some different ways to maybe pair with them, work with them. I've been talking to a couple different members, trying to recruit them also as peer educators in this. But yeah, so my question would be, is there kind of ways that we've tried to expand in the high school curriculum and maybe also pair with other organizations that kind of do similar peer education programs?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So we did actually a couple of years ago had a pilot program at a Denver public school where we adapted our Just Say No modules, a few of them based on sort of what the school was looking for middle school and high school. So that is something that we've done, and we do have some chapters also that are actively working in their local school system to provide similar knowledge to the youths. So I do have some resources already sort of developed that have been adapted. I'm happy to share that if you're interested, and definitely happy to talk further about that if that's something that you want to engage in.
Absolutely, that's something I would definitely be interested in seeing because as I was like talking to one of my good friends that works in Peer Health Exchange, I'm trying to like have him be our chapter's also peer education coordinator. But we were trying to figure out ways like and to actually really get that overlap because they do Peer Health Exchange like in our local community really has been working in there a while. They're a well-known name, so we were trying to find like use that almost as a direct connection that we could maybe directly work with them and like expand their program into also incorporating something with Just Say No.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great, and that's definitely something we encourage is for folks to collaborate with existing programs either in their community or their school, and in fact, the Just Say No, like the idea for Just Say No, like the module part of it, the drug education part of it came from our Virginia Commonwealth University chapter, who worked with their like drug and alcohol specialist on campus to develop the Just Say No module. So the format and the structure that you see in those drug education modules, actually that's based on their work. So they really sort of were the ones to pilot that piece of the Just Say No program.
One more kind of, I guess, specific question on the same note. Because as I was talking with my friend, one kind of like concern we had was obviously like how receptive would these high schools be to us coming in and giving some sort of harm reduction and drug education. So, do you have like specific kind of, I don't know, plans or ways to overcome that, and how would we actually begin to engage with these high schools and try and push for this type of program?
Yeah, that's definitely an excellent question, and it kind of depends on the high school. I've It's been made easy for me in the sense that the high schools have reached out to me, right? So there's been a couple of local high schools here in the Chicago area where I've gone and presented some of this information because they reached out. They heard about Just Say No through someone else, and I was able to do that. But otherwise, I do think that like building those community sort of relationships with other organizations is definitely a good step in that direction. Um, and yeah, so that's definitely something that is worth sort of exploring further, and like what sort of messaging or what sort of outreach we can do to local schools so that we can kind of let folks know that we're here and willing to provide this super important information. Thanks, Baruch.
Hi, my name's Emma. I am part of SSDP at Columbia, and Robert I think he might be in this call, but shared with me something about the drug checking guidelines, but it was something that I wanted to ask you as well. I mean, not you as well, but just to see how this could move forward. So for New York, there's a little less liability in terms of distributing, so long as we're not endorsing and or confirming the safety or like seeing the substances or distributing anything in terms of like reagent kits and tests. Recently, there was a potential outbreak of like carfentanil in Brooklyn, and it was scary. I was doing an updated naloxone training so I can be a trainer, and I was trying to see. It was actually really difficult to find on the internet where in New York I could pick up fentanyl test strips because of COVID. And a lot of the places that are normally the safe needle exchanges are like adapting to different rules and not necessarily have all of their products available and don't want as many people coming in that don't need to be. And I was wondering during this time, considering that it's very related to drug education, like what the possibility would be in terms of funding as well, because I know that on DanceSafe they have like the strips where you can buy like a pack of 100 or 200 of them, and I'm right now also, if anyone else has already done like this SSDP Just Say No training, the DanceSafe volunteer training course is really cool. I've been working on that right now and I've been really enjoying it. I like the way it's written and like the way it's set up, but also because they have the kits on, like you can purchase them, and when you purchase the kits it also comes with info cards, and I thought I think it could be something really interesting, similar to hanging things on the door, these info cards that like kind of give you a very good information about, not necessarily like giving you 100% assurance of like what it's supposed to look like or smell like, but like kind of giving like a rounded idea of like what it, maybe an image of it or something, or like what the quantities, and the bottom of the posters that they sell as well, they tell you what the quantities that you can ingest are and like what the category of that type of journey would be. And I was wondering if SSDP would be interested in doing something like that, considering that we have such a recent like surge in the user community right now. And if doing stuff more on like kits could be something available, or if the funding for it, because I know like if we did do it, there's also written to be unaffiliated with SSDP. So like we could do it, but like maybe not be in alignment or not have like a banner written that we're doing it with SSDP, because we don't want to hold anyone liable.
Sure.
Like how we could get about that, because it's expensive. I've been trying to see what different websites have the cheapest, but still
Yeah, so
working.
it looks like Rob put something in the chat about that they've reached out to Valeria about the fent, at least the fent test strips.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's one piece, and there was a lot. I feel like there was a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Said, so I want to try to remember and capture. So the first thing you asked about was the drug checking guidelines and how that might apply specifically to New York. I would recommend you circle back with Rob on that, since that's the policy thing. That would be something that he could maybe work with you a little bit more carefully on. And then you mentioned info cards, and that's something that we have in the works. It's just a matter of getting the design piece together and ready to print. And then what else did I miss from what you shared?
So from a price standpoint.
Sorry, one more thing. And actually you mentioned the DanceSafe volunteer training. Our nightlife harm reduction lesson was developed in collaboration with DanceSafe. So that is actually built in to our training. It's all is linked to in that as well. So that's kind of cool.
Awesome. I also was wondering, like, I know this would be, again, probably more specific with even outside of New York, like with the idea, and this could be for any other state or any other chapter that they realize that the rules for their state work out well enough for this, doing like pippets instead of an entire reagent, because that's really expensive to be distributing for free, but pippets, and then doing it not just with your university, but maybe your community. Mm-hmm. And having SSDP be more directly involved with anyone from any, like in any age range. So like that could involve a high schooler coming in and asking for a Marquise pipette and the info card with it, and then they could get that and like lower, I guess. I mean, we could talk about with Rob about the finances itself, but I thought it'd be an interesting way to make it more affordable as well for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think those all sound like super cool ideas and definitely cool things for you guys to be looking into. I know with the test kits that it can get a little iffy just because I know the materials themselves are you know messy and you're not supposed to get them on your skin and there's lots of different ways that they can cause some problems. So I like the idea of the pipettes.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and we'd have to look into like the reality of whether not that is like possible based in science. It's not something that I'm as well versed in, but super cool thing to explore. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other just say no related questions or feedback or thoughts? While we're waiting for people to come up with questions, I see that Julia and Luis and Rob and Kevin, who are all SSDP certified peer educators, are on the call. So if any of you want to sort of jump in and share a little bit about your experiences with the program, how it's been, how you've utilized it in your life, that might be cool too.
Sure. Here, let me.
Hey, well.
All right. Hey everyone. So yeah, I became a certified peer educator early on. I think it was like in 2016. And or no, it was in 2017. And my chapter, like along with Kevin and Luna and a few others, we ended up just like meeting on a regular, like almost daily basis and going through a lesson a day, just like kind of talking about the objectives, the going through the resources, having discussions about the sessions, and then taking time to submit everything. It As like a group activity, I found it to be very rewarding and just enjoyable. It like generated a lot of interesting discussion, and we're kind of nerds, so we like searched things, and it became this whole thing where we would spend hours on it, even if we could have realistically finished it in like an hour most of the time. Ever since getting certified, I've integrated the first lesson of Just Say No into the SSDP orientations, which happen on a bi-weekly basis, and have been teaching that as part of onboarding for new members. Obviously, like for the last 3 years, I've been doing like coaching and working with members, and generally speaking, the members that I have worked with who have gone through the program and have given me feedback, the one of the most valuable things that they tend to get out of it is the ability to communicate information quickly, such as like tabling settings and things like that, where you only have a few minutes to communicate with someone or to address maybe a misconception. And the program gave them better ways to communicate that information so people would actually listen. Yeah, that's been my experience.
Thank you so much, Luis, for sharing that.
I had a question.
Good.
Hi, my name is Avi. I'm a chapter leader at Buffalo. And I'm not a certified peer educator, but I have utilized some of the Just Say No modules with our group here. That's been very sporadic. But my question is like, are there any ways to make some of these modules more interactive? I feel like, again, like I am not certified. I haven't gone through the whole program. I don't know like all the ins and outs of it, but just from presenting one or two, I think one was on cocaine and another was on marijuana. I had a difficult time not making it feel like a lecture of some sort. And I don't know if that's something that is addressed more in the certification process, or if that is maybe something to think about, like how to make these more engaging within member groups about how to kind of make it a little bit more fun than just a lesson. While there is a lot of information and a lot of stuff to go through, which I understand is part of the education piece of it. But yeah, just thought about how to make it more interactive.
Yeah, thank you for that. So there is a whole lesson on programming and presentation skills in the training. So I would recommend you go through the training. Generally, that's recommended people do first before they start presenting the drug education modules, because again, it gives you that wide range of knowledge so that you can sort of take the drug education the Just Say No modules and sort of either break them up. So you can create like a series on a particular drug. There's lots of ways that you can sort of utilize that information, particularly if you reach out to me first. I'm able to sort of walk you through presenting that and what that looks like. There's also a whole slew of polls that are built in, polls and questions that can be done live that are built into those lessons, those modules that ask people about their knowledge about a particular drug, their experience, if what they think about it, and that kind of thing. That helps it be more interactive, and that's something that they could do on their cell phone or their computer while they're there watching watching the thing happen. So I haven't seen those polling questions be used, so it seems to me that maybe you haven't been using those, but there is instructions on how to do that, and it should be available in the training curriculum, and I can also share that with you separately. But definitely reach out to me, and we can sort of talk through some additional ways to use those resources.
That'd be great. Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? I just wanted to talk a little bit about not making it seem like a lecture. I felt like that happened to me a lot when I was first doing the presentations, where it was just kind of boring, like just talking at the crowd. But I think something that really helps is just trying to facilitate like an open discussion, like a Q&A, like everybody should be involved in the conversation. I feel like with the topic as controversial as like drugs, particularly like cocaine or something, people have things to say. I think it's really important just to try and gather what people are trying to get out of it, and just encourage people to speak up. And I feel like once one person starts speaking out, then another person starts talking, and kind of everybody starts interacting and whatnot. So yeah, I feel like it's kind of hard at first, but once you get the hang of it and kind of maybe powwow with a few folks that are like the real tight knit people in the chapter, I feel like you do all right with it. But yeah, I hear you. It could be super lectury at first, and it's kind of boring like that. So yeah, keep doing it. It'll get easier. And I guess just say a little bit about the program. I felt like the program's great. Like the idea of it coming to high school is something I've thought about a lot, because I felt like this is the type of education I needed when I was in high school. And unfortunately, I didn't get that until I discovered SSDP a few years later. But going through the program was extremely helpful for me personally and professionally. Like I was able to get these skills and use them in like a harm reduction job, for example, like giving trainings and whatnot, like harm reduction, naloxone trainings. I feel like this type of education really prepared me for those type of things, and it really prepared me to engage in professional conversations regarding like drugs and harm reduction and drug policy. And my participation in this program has definitely led to a lot of opportunities that I believe I wouldn't have had otherwise. So I think the program's awesome, and I'm happy to be a part of it and helping revamp it and whatnot. So thanks, y'all. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Kevin. Like I said, that's the real MVP right there, folks. Are there questions or feedback or thoughts? Julia, do you have anything to share about your experience?
Yeah, hey, I was trying to turn my video on. You guys are seeing live some packaging of some sterile cottons. So I was gonna say, I think Just Say No helped me get my job that I have right now, which I'm at right now, which is with Prevention Point Pittsburgh's Fringe Service Program here in Pittsburgh. Also, something I thought might be helpful to share for those of you that are still students and are either certified or working on the Just Say No modules, I found so much information in the Just Say No to write papers. If you ever have, like, especially if you're in the humanities and you have to write a lot of papers, I got a degree in social work. If you can ever find a cool drug policy topic or a cool harm reduction topic that you want to work on, like, you can just search it in the Just Say No, and there's all these wonderful resources that are already from accredited things that you can end up using in your paper, and they're like right there. And then I guess I just want to second Kevin on it preparing me for other sorts of trainings as well. My chapter mate EL and I have given some of these trainings to our chapter since we've been certified, and we've also done, a lot of naloxone trainings and stuff like that. I'm an overdose prevention specialist now, and I integrated a lot of stuff from the Just Say No into our presentation to kind of make it more inclusive and talk about some more things related to highly stigmatized drug use and overdose prevention. So yeah, that's my 2 cents, but thank you so much, Phil, for everything that you put into it.
Thanks. And yeah, that's so cool that you guys are writing papers with this, with this stuff. Happy to help.
So I have another question that just kind of came into my mind based on the things we've been trying to work on with our chapter. So I know I'm pretty sure most universities have some sort of mandatory drug education programs or stuff that they, it's mandatory for the students to engage in before they could actually start their semesters and stuff like that. So is there some sort of outline, or has there been past successes with directly getting involved in some sense in those types of mandatory programs and trainings that the actual universities and administrations provide for? Has there been some sort of success maybe at other chapters where Just Say No and some of the different education modules actually became a part of the mandatory education, or what are some of the things to think about if we do try and begin to work?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. We've had a handful of chapters who have been sort of tapped to deliver some harm reduction, drug education information during freshman orientation week. That's kind of a common one that tends to happen. It's something I've done. I did a presentation at DePaul during their orientation week years ago. And yeah, so that's one really good way. It's one of those things where I feel like the universities, they know they have to do it, but it's one of the things that they don't care about as much. So I definitely encourage you to reach out to whomever is the person in charge of that. A lot of universities will have an alcohol and drug specialist is often the title, or in your wellness center or health and wellness center. Those sorts of folks will generally be the ones that need to do this. I will say that there are other programs that exist, other peer education, around drugs that exist that your school might already be utilizing. So it might be useful to sort of check out those programs and see if there's ways to get involved, or maybe influence the kind of content that they share, because it's a lot of the same stuff that we've already seen. Generally on college campuses, they take a slightly more harm reduction approach when it comes to alcohol. They're pretty solid on that, but not anything else. So looking at different ways, I think it's important to learn about and get a sense of what is actually going on your campus, as far as what people are using, what seems to be the most common thing. Alcohol is ubiquitous, so that's obviously a thing all the time. but just kind of like getting a flavor for what your campus, what your community looks like when it comes to like the culture of drug use. And then, just there's nothing that would get in the way from you ask for a meeting with whomever that person is, alcohol and drug specialist. Because oftentimes it's like one person and a couple interns. So they are eager to work with students and, might be open to what you have to bring to them. And if they're not, that's okay too. And you can still do the just say no stuff.
To add to that, we've had a lot of chapters also invited to specific classes, largely sociology, anthropology, social psychology. You might be able to also get like a presentation in for a criminal justice course as well. Be proactive, like reach out to those professors and ask if they're doing a class on drugs and culture, for example. They generally be more open to drug policy reform. And even if they're not, if they're doing sociology or something like that, there's a chance that they have at least heard some of the conversations and arguments for harm reduction, because it does tend to seep into those spaces. Yeah, just a thought.
Yeah, super good point, Luis. And I recognize that academia is its own sort of world, right? Where there are lots of folks within that really value the voice of the students. And then there's others that like only think about like, what letters are behind your name. So that's an interesting thing to navigate. So if there's ever anything like that where you get that kind of pushback, where it seems like people don't feel like you're legitimate or anything like that, like please do reach out to me. I'm happy to help you try to navigate that. Obviously ask me first, but I'm usually open to you using my name and the fact that I have a doctorate, if it helps. But yeah, usually for the most part, especially when we're talking about the campus health folks, they're the ones that tend to be super open to students sort of coming to them with stuff. Just a few minutes left. Any other questions or, again, feedback too? If there's things that you want to see in the program that you haven't seen yet, I'd love to hear that as well.
Just to piggyback off of what Louise said, have you guys thought about doing a whole module about harm reduction and comparing harm reduction to abstinence? Not like comparing, but just discussing why harm reduction is important, because I feel like I've had to educate many people on what harm reduction is.
Yeah, so we have probably like 3 or 4 lessons, maybe even, that would cover that. So we have a harm reduction lesson, we have a stigma lesson, drug use overview, substance use disorder and chaotic use recovery. So yeah, like 4 lessons, because it is hugely important, that cover that kind of knowledge.
Well, I clearly got to go through the curriculum.
Yes, do it.
I guess I'll pop in one more question.
Yeah.
So like we kind of recently reinstated our chapter. We've been working on a number of different things. I did want to get the peer education network like system set up, but admittedly I've been kind of like working on other things that have kind of built up. And now we're really starting to try and like set up some sort of network. What would you, and sure, this is definitely in the modules. I've looked at some stuff like, how to set up an efficient peer education network. What would be some of like the preliminary steps in efficiently setting up some sort of like system of peer education, whether it be like, because I know in Peer Health Exchange, like I've been working closely with that friend that's doing that to try and have him be like our education coordinator, so I could focus on some other things. But like I know in Peer Health Exchange to have like a direct hierarchical system, like once you get engaged into their program, like you know exactly who you're gonna do. You have like like a kind of mentor that's going to help you through getting through the curriculum and stuff like that, what would be some of the baseline steps for setting up an efficient kind of Just Say No peer education network within kind of a university's chapter?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And it sounds to me like you're already like well on your way by having these conversations with this person. Because that's what I've seen other chapters do, is they sort of determine a peer education like coordinator or like officer within their chapter, whose role is essentially to do that, to help, they themselves will go through the training curriculum. And then from that point on, they're there to sort of serve as the person on the chapter that like organizes the Just Say No events that you have, and also helps other members that are interested in becoming certified peer educators sort of go through the program. They kind of end up being like the point person for all things Just Say No related. And I think, yeah, having that structure can be really helpful, because then, there is just like, a person that you can count on that is doing that. Where you can have it be like a committee of members, maybe a handful of people that are going to be doing, Just Say No focused stuff. That's definitely a good place to start.
So kind of on that point, so like one concern that we had, maybe we're trying to like think too quickly and we should slow down, but so we do want to like get through the curriculum. We want to have someone really well informed that's managing it, but we also do want to start like building up a network, trying to get people interested in it. So the kind of concern that he raised was he doesn't want to like necessarily take up that role and start building up this network before he's gone through all of the curriculum. So what would be your kind of advice on that if we did want to kind of start doing both? Like we don't necessarily have one that's been through the full curriculum, but we want to kind of start laying the groundwork for a future efficient kind of system.
Sure. I mean, I think that's a totally fair response from him, or from that person. I think having like a study group, essentially like a book club, like we mentioned, to go through it together is a totally reasonable option. Having just a few people, it makes it more social. Like Luis kind of shared about his chapter, how they kind of went through it together. And we also, like I said, I'm hopeful that the network-wide book club will get started. So that might be something that they could then engage in. So it's not just with the chapter, but then they can connect with people in other chapters that are also going through it, and kind of, bounce ideas off of each other about how they're going to be implementing programs, like what events you're putting together, that kind of thing. I think could be really cool.
I would also add that we have a number of certified peer educators that we could tap into as well. So if you were to reach out to either Vil, myself, Vil is the better person to reach out to actually, but either your outreach coordinator or Vil, and we'll go through that process of getting y'all, seeing if we can find a certified peer educator. And as Vil said, like I'm a certified peer educator, so is Robert. Vil created the thing, so like if nothing else, we can step in and do that educational piece for your chapter, assuming we have like capacity and time at that instance. But that's another option there.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Luis. So yeah, as we're like working toward developing the webinar format, as I mentioned earlier, that one of the things I'm doing is like kind of meeting with individual chapters to do the presentations for them. So that's another option, is having, scheduling a time for me to like present a lesson to your group, or, another one of the peer educators if I'm not available. If you're just kind of looking to bounce some ideas off of someone, or have someone that you can kind of consult with as you're going. Again, or it could be any other certified peer educator. Okay, any last questions? Cool. Well, then we'll wrap up there. Certainly, if you do have any questions or any additional feedback that you weren't able to share here, please do reach out to me. Again, if you have any ideas for different lessons or modules that you'd want to create, like that's a super cool thing that you can do to get involved. And it helps us a lot to get more content developed. So if you have any ideas like that, definitely reach out and I can get you set up with doing that. Yeah, thank you all so much for joining us today. And I'm grateful to all of you who have already gone through the program because you make it what it is, make it better every time. So yeah, thank you all so much. Bye.
Thank you, Vil.
Thank you all.
Bye. Thank you.